Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Burger. I'm Caroline Romo, the Executive Director of the New Mexico Beef Council. Joining me, we're here at the New Mexico Cattle Growers Office in Moriarty, and joining me is Kimberly Stone of Capitan, New Mexico. Kimberly, will you introduce yourself, and thanks again for joining the podcast.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. So my name is Kimberly Stone. I grew up just north of Roy a little bit, between there and Springer at Mills, New Mexico. My family has been there for over 120 years. I married Troy Stone from down near Capitan, and his family's been there for 100 years this August. And we have two sons, Alec and Bryce. And so excited to be here with you today.
Absolutely. I think that's one of my favorite things about you. I think you've told me that both of you have 100-year history in your ranching families. Mm-hmm. And isn't it 5 generations both?
Yeah, both Troy and I are 5th generation. And so Alec and Bryce are 6th. And we're really thankful for that opportunity.
Yeah. What a special thing. We talk about that a lot in the podcast, that the generational exchange of ranching is pretty special. Not every business do you have that.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, we love that. So tell us a little bit more about your operation. Tell me about your cattle.
Absolutely. So we are commercial cow-calf. Like most people, at one point there was Hereford cattle, and so then we moved into putting Angus bulls on. And so we're now mostly Angus cattle. Mm-hmm.
How do New Mexico's landscapes and climate shape the way you ranch?
New Mexico is such a unique state, and it's so beautiful in each part, and every part has something unique to offer. And so you have to be able to adjust no matter where you're at, right? So even from the difference from where I grew up north down to where we're at, there's a significant difference. And so you just have to be prepared for drought. Pretty much anywhere in the state, it doesn't matter. You're going to have it at some point or another. And so making sure that your stocking rates really truly represent what the land can handle, because you've got to make sure you take care of that. That is the most important piece. You have to take care of the land. So that is one of our number one goals, is to make sure that we always have grass.
Absolutely. I had a conversation with someone who didn't have any familiarity with ranching, and just introducing the fact that ranching is based on native grasslands and renewing those grasslands and making sure that soil is healthy so that you can have, again, native grass. It's a really important part. We're not out there. The cattle aren't just getting fed hay or grain all the time. In extreme measures, absolutely. But the first goal of a rancher is grass. Absolutely. We want that native grass, right? Mm-hmm. Which is important to reiterate. What do you think is the most rewarding part of being in the beef industry?
Oh my gosh. It's all rewarding, truly, every single day. I mean, you talked a little bit about the heritage piece. That is extremely rewarding, to be able to know that someday our kids can come back, hopefully if they want to, right? But that is extremely rewarding. But then, I mean, it is truly, you go back biblically and people cared for livestock. And it truly makes me emotional to think that we get to do that every day. And I know my husband feels the very same way, to get to be stewards of the land and of the livestock and to care for things. That is what it's about.
Absolutely. It's a pretty special thing to be a part of, and we're grateful that you guys are and are willing to. What's one of the biggest challenges you face in your operation?
Challenges come in all shapes and form, right? We talked about drought. There can be challenges that are political in nature, challenges that are environmental in nature, but there's also just challenges and there's lessons to be learned every single generation, things, and you have to be willing to adapt and change. And so change is hard, but you have to know what's going on and you have to keep up with things. And so that can be challenging, to shift your whole operation one direction or another because of some of those political pressures. In our neck of the woods, we don't have as many as some others do in the state, but you have to be prepared for that because it could change at any single moment.
Absolutely. The challenges are often endless. Can you give an example of how you care for your cattle to support their health and well-being?
Well, it goes back to stewardship. Everything that my husband and my sons do on the ranch every single day is an example of caring for them. It's truly a moral obligation to make sure that they have water. That's the first and foremost, right? Water and feed. We make sure that they have that before our house has water, right? I mean, they're the most important things, and taking care of that. And that's just one example. I mean, herd health is very important. We have challenges with the screwworm on the border, right? Each operation is having to face what decisions are we going to make this spring, right? Whenever you're branding, how are you going to care for those cattle to make sure that you're doing everything you can that doesn't come to your operation? There's no guarantees, but you just have to, once again, it's back to those challenges. You got to be paying attention to what's going on and understand what is going to be best for you and your operation. So,
oh, absolutely. There's a decision around every corner. What is something that you're excited about in your operation right now?
You know, I keep coming back to that piece of heritage. My oldest son is fixing to be 20 years old. My youngest son is 17, and both of them love ranching. And that is probably one of the most exciting things, that they're asking the deeper questions about making sure that they can come back and what that looks like, and to ensure that future generations can be there. And there's truly, it's a lot of pressure in one sense as well, but a very exciting time nonetheless.
Oh, I bet. I think that would be a lot of people's goals or hopes that their kid might want to come back, right? Right. You never want to force it. You never want to tell your kids what to do, but to have that available to them is pretty special.
Absolutely.
What's one thing people don't realize, or most people probably don't realize, about raising beef in New Mexico?
Oh, goodness. One thing people don't probably realize. Well, you know, the TV show Yellowstone has definitely romanticized a lot of things for agriculture across the board. It doesn't quite get that exciting, but I mean, it's a grind every single day. You know, we just had a really big storm that came through. Maybe people do realize that it doesn't matter. They've got to get out. They, being my husband, my kids, me, even if needed, we have to get out and we have to make sure that those animals are all taken care of in that. And so it's a lot less horseback and fun, and more feed truck and things of that nature, fixing fence. And so it's not as romantic maybe every day as it always looks on TV.
Oh yeah. We are grateful for the fact that it's cool to be a cowboy now, and I think Yellowstone helped with that, right? Sure. And that was, I think, I heard Taylor Sheridan speak one time. That's what he said. He wanted to make it cool to be a cowboy again, and I feel like that's done. That's happened.
It absolutely has.
And like you said, it's not as romantic and definitely not as wild in some ways. So tell me about your career and how that is, because you, which is a common story with ranchers, somebody works in town, right?
Absolutely.
And so tell me about kind of your path and with that.
Yeah. So, I was very fortunate before my husband and I got married. I got to do some really neat things in Washington, D.C. And when we decided to start a family, it was very important for me to get to be home. And over the course of the first 5 years of having kids, we had the two boys, as I mentioned before, Alec and Bryce. And our oldest son had some very severe health issues that were diagnosed when he was older. And so I went to work because we needed health insurance. And I knew something was wrong with him. We just didn't know what it was, and the doctors weren't able to find it. So the medical bills were really racking up. And so at that point in time, I went to work in town because we had to have that health insurance. And it has definitely been a blessing to have that, because more than just his medical pieces, there's a lot of accidents that happen on the ranch over the years. And so we have put that health insurance to good use, and I'm thankful that we had it. But it also has allowed us to do other things as well that we're very thankful for.
Absolutely, and you've had a pretty neat career. Very, very fun to see where you've been in the stories you have too. So I'm always impressed and excited by that. And then tell me, so kind of aside from your career, you're also involved in a lot of organizations. So maybe go into that and your New Mexico Beef Council, New Mexico Cattle Growers as well, and I'm sure there's others. But yeah, tell me about that and the want to be a part of those.
Well, I think it ties back to even when my early career and my first job out of college. You know, I knew I wanted to eventually go back to the ranch, right? And I ended up meeting my husband. And actually, funny story, when I went to work for Congressman Joe Skeen right out of college, his chief of staff, Suzanne Isold, she sat me down and we're having a conversation. And she says, "What is your plans?" And I said, "Oh, I'm just going to be here for a little while. I have to go home and marry a New Mexico rancher." And that's exactly what I told her. And ultimately, 3-4 years later, I ended up doing that very thing, and she came to my wedding too. So we laugh about that now, but my goal was always to be involved in ranching, raise my family that way, if at all possible. But I wanted to do things that supported agriculture across the way. And I spent a little bit of time in the public school, but still, even there, I felt like I was being an advocate for beef and for what we needed to share with young students. My professional career and then my want to be on the boards all ties back to helping producers. At the end of the day, I want to make sure that other people's families and future generations can still be involved. And so Beef Council, as you mentioned, New Mexico cattle growers, been a member of Cowbells for many years. Probably, actually, that might be the longest one since I was in college. I was a collegiate cowbell. I used to go with my little Granny Helmy and Raton to the cowbell meetings as a kid. So have been involved in that for a very long time, and then other civic organizations, but at each one, just always making sure that there's a opportunity to talk about the importance of agriculture, the importance of stewardship, and the importance of what people in agriculture do every single day for our country and our world.
That's vital. Those volunteers and willing to work in the industry is vital, right? We have to, we want this industry to continue on, and that's why I'm eager to, or grateful for my role in it, that it's part of my career. But it's such an important industry. We all eat. That's I was at a dinner the other day and they said, it was somebody else's phrase, but they said, if you eat every day, you're part of agriculture.
Absolutely.
And that's a pretty important thing. Tell us about a hard lesson you've learned in the business, whether it's in the beef industry or maybe a lesson from ranching. But yeah, what's a good lesson that you've learned?
So I think, the way I would define the lesson, because there's so many lessons actually, but in generational ranching businesses, you have to learn from previous generations and what has happened. And I talked a little bit earlier about the importance of change. Pete Bonds wrote an article, and I can't remember which publication it was in. It's been over 15 years ago. But he made a comment and he said, "You can't let your heritage be a millstone around your neck." And that really resonated with my husband and I, both coming from very long lines of ranching and doing things a certain way. And, when we read that, we just really took that to heart to say you have to respect the heritage, what all of your previous generations have done, but you have to be willing to be at the table to make the changes that you need to stay viable. And so maybe not the lesson you were looking for, but that's something that we have really taken away, is that you have to be ready to change and make the changes when they're necessary. And sometimes those changes cost money, but you got to do it to get to the other side.
So this is a question that I kind of added in. So I don't know the best way to ask, but do you have a favorite story? So is there a recent story of something? Maybe it's funny, maybe it's hard, maybe it's sweet. I think you kind of told me one earlier about the bottle calves and their names. But yeah, do you have a favorite story that you'd like to tell?
Gosh, there's so many stories and so many wonderful memories over the years of getting to raise our boys on the ranch. I mean, there's things that, times when the kids fell in the water tanks, or just things like that stick out in my mind. But you mentioned the bottle calf, and so the first year my husband and I bought the cows, that's a lot of debt to take on right there, and we were young and had a baby on the way, all of the things. And the first heifer that calves, she ends up dying. And so Troy brings the bottle calf up, and we're loving on it and need a name. And I named it In the Red because that's where he put us. He killed that first heifer that we had. And so anyway, lots of little things like that. We're just thankful to get to do it. I don't know. Every day is a blessing. Truly, it is.
Absolutely. Well, and I think it's a sweet story and a good reminder that that when something happens to a heifer or a cow, those babies still have to be cared for, right? And so that's why you have bottle calves, and that's the endless need to take care of them because it's an investment, because we love the animals,
Absolutely.
because we care for the whole situation and all of that. So that's a great story. I'm glad you told me that before we started recording, because I think In the Red sounds adorable. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Wow, that's hard to really pinpoint, because I receive so much. But bottom line, end of day, it doesn't matter. You keep God at the center of everything, and you pray about all things, and that is the single best advice that anybody, in my opinion, can give or receive.
That's great advice. What's something people might not know about you outside of ranching? So we talked career, we talk ranching. What's something else about you?
So this is kind of funny and probably something that I'm sure not many people know, but in 2001, I was going to Washington, D.C. Actually, it was January 2002, excuse me, and going to Washington, D.C., and there is a event in Washington in March, and it's called the Cherry Blossom Festival. And so each state puts together a representative, and you get to be a part of the festival, and it is called the Cherry Blossom Princess. And so I'm not very princessy at all, but I got to represent New Mexico in that event. It was a week-long series of events. They took us all over Washington, D.C. I learned so much about the city, the history of how we have cherry blossoms along the tidal basin. I got to unveil a New Mexico state stamp at the postal office there. And so very neat experience. And I'm thankful that I had that opportunity, even if the word princess is in the title.
Oh, I love that. That is such a neat story and such a neat experience. Like I said, your career and your background has always been interesting to, I think, all of us. You always have something. Well, when I was working here, oh my gosh, you did that too. That's really cool. Really cool. And great to know the places you can go as a fifth generation rancher. Your still heart is at the ranch, but often we have to work in DC. We have to do things. So why do you do what you do? What keeps you going even on the hard days?
Absolutely. So it's definitely because it's a privilege. It's an opportunity to get to be stewards of the land and take care of the cattle and show the kids what it's like to do this every day, because it's hard. It is not something you don't turn in at 5 o'clock, right? You don't have every weekend to just work in the yard or do those things. It is early mornings, late nights, all the things. And that is what's always kept my husband and I going. And then from a professional standpoint, the trajectory that my career has taken. I've been able to work in Washington, D.C., as I mentioned, for a member of Congress. I was a Bush appointee at the Department of Agriculture, where I got to see way more than just the beef industry. I mean, every single industry that the United States has, even in shrimping and things that are not at all something we would see in New Mexico. I got to learn a little bit about each of those. And that was so neat to see, because just like you said, if you eat, you're involved in it somehow, and you think about all the work that those people in agriculture do just to touch the entire world. It's pretty fascinating. And then now working in the crop insurance industry, working for the underwriting companies, and now doing private contract work for them every day. Something that I do is helping some farmer or some rancher somewhere continue to provide a living for their family doing what they love. And ultimately, that's what it's about.
That's absolutely great inspiration to keep going and inspiration to get through hard days. Is there anything that you'd like people to better understand about the beef industry? So if we're talking to consumers, what do you want them to know about the beef industry? That
the food pyramid was just put the shape it should have been, with protein at the top. And I do personally believe that beef is the most complete protein that we can have. I eat wildlife, I eat chicken, I eat pork, I eat seafood, but when I know I want something that's going to completely satiate me and give me the most nutrients, I am eating beef. I believe that is the best thing to do. I also try to eat much more of a carnivore diet than not, but occasionally I will falter and eat a lot of chips and salsa because, I am from New Mexico, so that's okay.
It's hard not to. It's hard not to, but it's not any salsa. It's New Mexico salsa, right? We can't eat chips and salsa when we leave the state usually.
But yeah, the beef industry as a whole, I mean, it's so important, the work that ranchers are doing, because they're working to improve every part of the animal. And then we use so much of the animal, right? And maybe things that we might not use here in the United States, we're able to send overseas, just like liver burgers and things like that are the U.S. Meat Institute is working on getting in other parts of the world. And so it's amazing to me just how we utilize everything and the effort that ranchers are putting in to improve the quality of the animals. We're killing heavier animals, right, than we have before, and providing more beef out of a single carcass. And that's very important, especially as we look at those numbers decreasing and continued drought across the West. There's a lot of great things that the beef industry does.
I also want people to know those things. I think excellent way to put it. What advice would you give someone who wants to follow in your footsteps, whether it be ranching, whether it be volunteering, or even in a career to help subsidize the ranch? What advice would you give someone?
God's at the center of absolutely everything you do. Don't make a decision without praying. And he will guide you, and you need to trust your gut, because that gut is the Holy Spirit, and he is going to tell you exactly what you need to do. And if you do that, the other things are going to absolutely fall into place. And you should probably make it a point to work extra hard as well. And I'll tell a little story about working hard and just the reputation that people who come from production backgrounds have. So when I went to work in Washington, D.C., I spent a year with the congressman, and then I was fortunate enough to be a political appointee in the Bush administration. And I started there working for one of the administrators. And I got to tell you, it was pretty boring. I mean, he's had me reading some stuff. It was pretty boring. Well, 2 or 3 weeks into that, I meet the undersecretary, and we get to talking, and he asked me about my background. I explained to him I grew up on a ranch, and he said, I'm looking for somebody to help me in my office, and I do not work with anybody who does not have production ag background experience. And so that stuck with me all of these years, that farm kids work hard, ranch kids work hard, and they know how to work. And if you will trust God and work hard, the sky's the limit. Because I was a little bitty country girl, very country dumb. There's so many examples of that going to Washington, D.C. And I have been so fortunate. I've traveled to all but one state in our country. I've been to 8 countries internationally. I've interacted with heads of state, all the things. And it has truly been because I was taught a good work ethic and to believe in God.
Yeah, have faith and work hard. That should be a bumper sticker. It probably is.
Right.
Excellent advice again. So now kind of my favorite question. What's your current favorite way to eat beef, or maybe a go-to recipe?
Mm-hmm. So I'm pretty simple when it comes to beef. I love steak. Probably most people do, but I love a steak cooked on our smoker. I have a Yoder smoker, and so I will put that on there low and slow, and I only use salt. I don't use any other, no binders, no anything else. I just season it with salt, occasionally a little bit of pepper, but honestly, I just like the salt, low and slow until it's a perfect medium rare temperature, somewhere around 125-ish maybe, a little bit more than that. And yeah, that's how I like to do it.
Excellent way to eat it. Do you? Is there anything when we've been? I've been chasing you down for a podcast, and I appreciate your time. Is there anything when we were doing it that you thought, man, I want to make sure and say this or get this point across? Was there anything else that you kind of had in your mind that you wanted to include?
I have to say that what is on my mind, based on some discussions that I've had recently, actually with young moms who are struggling with that decision of what do I do? Do I need to go to work in town? Do I need to stay home? What do I do? And you want to be with your kids. And I'll come back to that piece of you've got to trust God to do what's right for your decision, for you and your family, right? And you can't let anybody else influence that decision. No matter what, you have to do what is best for you and your family. I just made a huge decision to walk away from a job that was very rewarding. I loved the job, but it took me away from home. And yes, one of the people I work with said, well, what are you going to do? I'm going to stay home with my baby. Like, baby? I said, yeah, he's 17, but he's my baby. I still want to be home with him for that last year and a half. So as moms, we are faced with so many decisions, and they're emotional decisions. But at the end of the day, you have to do what is best for you and your family, no matter what that looks like and what other people say. And again, I'm going to say it again. You got to pray and trust the Holy Spirit as he moves in you to help you make those decisions. But it's okay to stay home with your babies. It is absolutely okay to do that, because there's a season you can always work, but you cannot get that time back with your babies.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that same advice, trust God, work hard, kind of goes to being a mom too, right?
Yes, it does.
I know I'm grateful that working in the agriculture industry, specifically, working in the beef industry, that my kid can come sometimes, right?
Absolutely.
And family comes to the center of every conversation we have. And yeah, as a mom, we're always questioning what we should do, what the right thing to do, and it's different for every family. And and I'm grateful that I have a job and I work but that's because I have Grandma and Nana that will take care of, or Grandpa today, who will take care of our daughter, and so we have this unique thing where she can come with me and all of that. So yeah, I love that advice, and I love that absolutely you got to cherish your kids while you can. And there's only a few years. Mine already thinks she's 16 and she's 4. She's already telling me what to do. The only good thing is
she's just getting started at that, I'm sure.
Yeah, the only good thing is she does tell us. We tell her we're saving for her college, and she says, I don't want to go to college. I want to stay with you guys. And we're like, yeah, you should do that, actually.
Absolutely.
Right now, we want you to stay home, too. But
yeah. Excellent
advice for a mom, and congratulations on your recent career change. And yeah, very excited to see how that goes and all of that. Well, thank you for being on the podcast. We so appreciate what you do. I think most importantly, thank you for your work as a Beef Council board member, as a representative of New Mexico on the National Cattlemen's Beef Association Federation Executive Committee, if I can say that right. We so appreciate that you're representing us, representing New Mexico on that national stage. And thank you especially, though, for the work you do to help feed the world. We need ranchers. We need people willing to make the hard choices, make the sacrifices, so that we can enjoy a nice steak anytime we want. Because we do live in a country, in a city, in a town, or a time where we can do that. So thank you for that effort, and thank you for continuing on and inspiring the 6th generation. And again, just thank you for all you do, and thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, and I look forward to continuing to serve, because I do enjoy it. So.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
And eat more beef.
Absolutely. Behind the Burger is produced by the New Mexico Beef Council to celebrate the people and stories behind New Mexico beef. Thanks for listening. Follow the show so you never miss an episode, and connect with us on social media for more behind-the-scenes stories and updates. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at NM Beef, and on Facebook at NM Beef Council. We'll see you next time, and until then, beef, it's what's for dinner.